Stop being so nice to your kids. You're screwing them up. Today on the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Bienvenidos. Muchachos de space.
Space boys.
Some of us have not yet matured into spacemen. Muchachos is boys?
Yeah.
What's men? Hombres.
That's just reminds me of that Arrested Development line. He's like, hey there, Mo Frere. Or what does he say? I can't remember what it is. I think Mo Frere's friend. But
I keep thinking about one.
He says something like, that's French for brother. I don't know why I know that. We got to find this hermano guy.
This hermano guy. Mi hermano? You know hermano?
Mi hermano? Sí, está ahí.
Did I just freeze on you guys? Doesn't matter. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
It reassured us that the recording will come out pristine, so it doesn't matter.
Pristine.
If it looks choppy before, it'll be pristine.
How did you describe this show? Pristine.
Pristine.
You guys should listen to the Manspace. It's pristine.
Pristine.
One of my favorite descriptors of things is choice.
It is so choice.
Yeah. One of my cousins one time was talking about his CD album, and he's like, yeah, dude, I mean, it's got a few choice tracks.
Dude, did I tell you about my friend Ross Cowman in high school? We were in jazz choir, and he was the jazz guitarist. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, I can't remember who he said, but he's like, he's got some hot licks and cool riffs. And I was like, I want to punch you, Ross. Every once in a while said to Becky, like, that's a good song. It's got some hot licks and cool riffs. It's got both hot licks and cool riffs. That's doubling down.
Well, I was going to say, neither one of those, even on their own, works.
Hot licks.
Hot licks.
Hot licks.
Cool riffs.
Hot licks sounds like a chicken platter.
Did you guys ever see? You guys watched Homestar Runner?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who did Homestar Runner for a little while on Disney XD did these little like shorts. It was called Two More Eggs. Dude, what are you doing with your hoodie, Mike? Why does the hood just keep? Is there someone behind you?
It's just my baseball bat.
Dude, I totally thought I saw a kid's head running behind you, but it was the baseball bat.
All of a sudden your hood just pops up. Anyway, why was it? Because they have this. It's all nonsensical stuff, just like Homestar Runner was, where it's like some point there's this hot dip that every time you open up a can of hot dip, this hot dip pops up in your living room. And at some point he gets all mad at the kid. Kid opens, he's like, hot dip isn't showing up. And finally hot dip shows up. He's like, do you have any idea how much the hot dip makes every time you dip ours into your living room? It is not much, Kyle. It is not much. And he's like, hot dip owes a lot of people a lot of money. So freaking weird. Go watch it. Two More Eggs. Or don't.
Can you still find it on Disney?
You can probably find it on YouTube at this point. Well, maybe not, because Disney
that's true.
Control.
Disney controls.
I don't know. I think you can still find Homestar Runner. That was freaking hilarious. My kids still quote that too. Not just Trogdor and all the strong bad stuff, but Homestar when he says, "It sounds dumb and boring to me." Thanks to Marianne. She says, "Well, it sounds dumb and boring to me." Dude, that thing was freaking funny. Anyway, yeah, here we are.
There was another one, dude. What was it?
Like an online?
It was similar to that, but it was oh crap. The main guy was like some superhero with a mask, white and black suit.
Superhero with a mask?
I'll have to find it.
Mostly a white suit, right?
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can visualize it.
Hey, while you're thinking about this, let me tell you guys about neural nostalgia. Have you heard of it?
Neural nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's not a real
Isn't
thing.
that just nostalgia?
It's specific. And like one of my clients mentioned this and I was like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know I've seen anything legitimate about it, which is basically like listening to the music from teenage years like will do stuff to like boost your mood and to shift the way you feel.
Because it's way better music than what there is now. That's why.
Dude,
To boost anybody's mood.
your look of disdain was like, "Ugh." On the way down today, after listening, I always listen to Malcolm Gladwell on the way down, but then I turned on a whole bunch of Less Than Jake, and the drummer blows.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the guy does not know what a fill is. He also has the tinniest sounding cymbals. I'm like, come on, man. And he keeps his hi-hat a little too open.
Yeah.
So it's too much like, it's too much. But man, by the end of it, it's like, yeah, I'm feeling like $1 million. Listen to stupid Less Than Jake. How cool am I? When she said that to me, I was like, oh man, I listen to a bunch of punk and ska. It's like, I don't listen to ska anymore. Apparently,
Wait. You
I
were
do.
saying that about you.
Yeah, I was saying
What
that.
was her childhood
I was like,
music?
I said, I was like, would you turn on like Third Eye Blind? She goes, no. I was like, oh, you're not as old as me. She listened to Backstreet Boys and like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera.
Oh, okay.
She's like probably early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Does that even
Plus,
count?
I listened to better music than she did. So
Did you tell her that? My neural nostalgia is going to be 10 times better than yours.
some of us will get a bigger boost. So everyone, go home and listen to music from your high school years. You'll feel, it's really good. I did this one day when we bought our Honda Civic, 2004 Honda Civic. It was so stripped down and manual transmission. It felt like driving a car that I would have had in high school or early college. I did that. I put my hat on backwards and listened to, I still listen to these guys, but listen to Newfound Glory driving at home. I was like, man, I feel like I'm 20 years old again.
That was, maybe I'm thinking of a different band. Anyway, yeah.
Mike, are you still searching out the hero with the white and black suit? You look really intense over there.
Is it Space Ghost?
Yes,
Oh,
Space Ghost, Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
That was on like Cartoon Network or something.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Adult Swim.
Yeah, I
I
just
turned
remember
it
my
off.
freshman year in college, we watched it a bunch.
You know, it was a funny show when it very first came on. Was a show on MTV called Clone High. Did you ever see it?
Like with clones?
Yeah, it was a cartoon, and it was
cartoon.
like Abraham Lincoln and Cleopatra, and the cool kid, the cool jock was John F. Kennedy. It was, and Gandhi was like this little pothead. It was freaking hilarious. Also, if you didn't know this, I just saw an ad for. Did you ever watch? You watched The State? You know what The State was?
I didn't watch it religiously, but I've seen clips of it.
I watched it a lot. I loved it. Me and my friend loved it, but they're doing a reunion of it, I guess.
Oh, nice.
Because everyone's like, it said, this guy from this show or this guy from this show, or
They all started here.
It all started on The State.
Yeah.
That show was funny. It talked about dipping things in files. We'll just say that. And it was like, get ready to dip some stuff in files. That was a funny show. All right. Sometimes I actually thought today, I was like, maybe we should just go down and like tell me what's making you mad lately, or just tell me like what you're thinking about lately. Because sometimes I just like hanging out, and we really should start recording as soon as we start talking. We had like a full hour of, well, it wasn't an hour. It was almost an hour of just shooting the breeze that I'm sure people want to listen into. I do have there's someone who sees one of my associates that also listens to the show. When I was walking in, she goes, man, you got internet problems, Rob. I was like,
I don't know that it's internet though, dude, because you have frozen two times already.
But why?
Yeah.
I have the fastest computer at this point.
I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, have I ever frozen?
You guys have both
Not
frozen
today.
on my screen.
But it's like,
but see,
whatever
I
it
mean-
is, Mike and I have the same
Dude.
experience of you.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
only
get
thing
it.
in common is you, Rob.
Well, Mike, you say
Like,
it
Matt
that,
has
and
it frozen-
Sounds, it sounds attacking.
Matt has it frozen on my computer.
I don't get it. Seriously, mine is the newest computer
No,
with the highest specs.
you don't get it.
There's no reason why I should be freezing. Maybe I'm
Sure
too animated. You guys are too boring to look at. And I'm moving around. It's like, this is too much to process.
Too
How do
much to upload.
How do we track all this guy?
Did you say, how do we trackle this guy?
Yeah. All this guy. If I switch on my center stage and start doing this to make Matt motion sick.
It's not even keeping up with you.
All right. The sad thing is for people just listening, it's like, what is that? Center stage. What's that? What's happening? No one gets to see your cool hoodie trick either, Mike. Gross. Just eat the Mento. Don't show us.
It's not a Mento.
It's
a Cadbury.
What is it?
It's a Cadbury mini
Our
egg.
job is not to make her kid happy.
Matt's ready. Matt's ready to move
Matt's
on to
had
our
enough of our nothingness.
This is.
Our job is not to make her
Stop, dude. You have it ready to go. Stop worrying. You're not going to have it ready to go.
No, it's not that. I was just pulling it up again, and it just keeps jumping right to.
And we don't know who it is that's saying this. All we know is it's Dr. Becky.
Dr. Becky. We'll get into it, but yeah.
Well, let's play this clip because we're going to talk about something we've touched on before, but actually, today we've touched on this idea as it relates to, like, are we overprotective of our kids? But actually, based on stuff we talked about previously before we started the show today, I'm going to expand it out into just men in general, because there's some ideas in there that I actually just had this conversation with two people about, not this morning, but yesterday and the day before. So Matt has a clip for us. So we were going to share our screen, but we're not sure that, whatever. I should stop telling people that. I should just say everything works flawlessly. And
it works exactly like we want it to.
Yeah, never mention internet problems again. Just leave it. Everyone knows that
even though Rob's already had some this episode.
Or mine still says I'm uploading it. It doesn't matter. Everything looks perfect on my screen. You guys freeze. All right. Matt has
this is Dr. Becky Kennedy. So she's a clinical psychologist, but her website is goodinside.com. And she has been called the millennial parenting whisperer.
Oh. By herself.
Good stuff. You want me to play it?
Play it now.
Play it.
If you have any poo, fling it now.
Our job is not to make our kid happy. That is so important and so countercultural.
Why is our job not to make our kids happy?
Because when we focus on making our kids happy, we actually start to make them fearful and less tolerant of all of the other emotions that will inevitably be part of their life into adulthood. And so when our kid says, I'm going to make this up, like, I'm the only one in my class who can't read. Okay, it's like the most painful moment as a parent. Oh, I feel my kid's pain, right? And maybe, let's just say it's true. They really might be. We have the urge to say, everyone reads at their own pace, but you're amazing at soccer, but you're so good at math. I want to make them happy. All that does for my kid is because during childhood, kids are not just learning about a situation with a parent. They're taking interactions and they're making generalizations, not from one moment, but patterns about what emotions are safe, what emotions can I deal with, what can I tolerate, and what emotions, as soon as I feel them, do I need to turn off right away. And so when a kid says, I'm the only one who can't read, the truth is when our kid is adult, they probably won't say that, but they'll probably say, I'm the only one who, whatever it is, didn't get a job yet. I'm the only one of my friends who didn't buy their own house, right? Whatever it is, we're always going to feel that way. And so when we make our kid happy, what we actually say to them is, I am just as scared of this emotion you're feeling as you are.
Wow.
And so then what they do...
I don't want to deal with this emotion.
I'm terrified. I want to run away from it. I want to do anything but this. And so what a kid's circuit is, I feel, let's say it's this, I feel less than, or it could be, I feel jealous, I feel sad, I feel disappointed. And what gets layered next to that in the circuit is my parents' fear, my parents' avoidance. Those things get put together. The irony is, when you make happiness a goal of childhood, you actually set a kid up for an adulthood of anxiety because they have a range of emotions that they've encoded as wrong and fearful. And to me, anxiety actually isn't a feeling. It's the experience of wanting to run away from a feeling. And if you...
Avoiding it. Yeah.
It is. And you can't really run away from a feeling inside your body. That's what anxiety is. You're like, wait, this is not going to win.
The gist of this topic is the gist of that quote was what?
Is that a question?
Yeah, put it out there.
I think bottom line, like, don't make your job's not to make your kids happy, because happiness in these situations that she's describing it's happiness for the sake of avoiding other feelings, right?
Yeah.
Like, and like the part that didn't get played was her saying, like, it's much more important to develop resilience in kids than happiness. And if you raise kids that are happy all the time, basically they'll be anxious as adults.
Yeah, that part is the like actually the first thing I wrote down. I took notes on it both times.
Both times it didn't play.
Both times it did work. Was actually I don't have a hard time. I think they're a better wording. She says you're sparing them from emotions that they will inevitably face.
Yeah.
And I thought she should replace the word inevitably with necessarily. Like it is necessary for them to experience these emotions in order to become the full human they want to be. So don't spare them from them.
Mm-hmm. Which is like, it's funny because her word choice, I think, kind of contradicts the point she's making.
Also, her extreme vocal fry, where she's like, "Let me see if I can come up with something on the spot." She has good points, but I was like, "Come on, vocal
I was going to
fry."
not make fun of her, but
Just
no,
it's not her. It's the whole movement of like vocal fry. I think I've told you there was a study that people perceived those with vocal fry as being more intelligent.
Really?
Yes, and I think it has to do with the way we perceive like where where it came from. And like if you watch movies where it's like the cool rich girls would be like, oh my gosh, and they were the ones that people wanted to be, and so then it was like now vocal fry became this. I guess it's thoughtful to be like, and I was thinking, I don't know, but whatever it is, the whole vocal fry. It's nothing against her. I actually really like her points, but vocal fry, I'm out.
But that was
I'm out.
The thing that to me. Right. She talks about how in doing this thing for your kid, you're kind of painting the emotion he's feeling as a negative thing.
Right.
And I think, yeah, but so does her wording. Right. That idea of you're sheltering them from things that they'll inevitably face. And that's where I think you're right, Rob. Like, no, this is a necessary part of development, and it's good to experience these things.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
inevitably
it's not
sounds like you can't avoid.
necessarily,
Yeah.
but it's good. Like, and there's times, like, Jenner never understood this, but there were times, especially when I was in high school, where if my depression would kick up, sometimes I would just lean into it because I liked it. Like, I liked kind of feeling that. And so I would let myself feel it for a few days, and then I would do things to get myself back out of it. But I don't know. It's a good thing.
Well, this is a quote we used a long time ago, like a couple of years back, from Frank Ferretti, not Ferruti. Ferretti, who's a professor a professor emeritus at the University of Kent.
Isn't that in England?
Either that or Canada. He's Canadian. He's Hungarian Canadian.
Oh, okay.
Young people are socialized to feel fragile and overawed by uncertainty. And as a result, the defining feature of the current Western 21st century version of personhood is its vulnerability. Although society still upholds the ideal of self-determination and autonomy, the values associated with them are increasingly overridden by a message that stresses the quality of human weakness. And if vulnerability is indeed the defining feature of the human condition, it follows that being fearful is the normal state. So this idea, like, without building this resilience in kids, it's like, yeah, you're breeding them to think, stay over here where it's safe, where you feel happy. Happy is what we should feel. And over here, these are bad ones. And then we start to think we have to be afraid of these things that always come. So when she says inevitably, I still think it's correct. Use a word instead and say these are necessary and actually good. But it makes it sound like, these are trouble. And then what do I do? Because I keep feeling these things, and something is wrong if I'm feeling these things. Plus, there's a whole bigger problem when she says it's not our job to make our kids happy. Whatever the crap happy means, I don't. There's no way to define that. Like I was watching these. I was thinking about this. If I bring up going to my son's female friend, we'll say that because I don't think he calls her his girlfriend, but to her dance competition or last night dance performance, and watching these kids and watching these performances and thinking of like, I love to watch these things. Every time I go to any sort of dance performance or watch it on TV, I feel like I want to cry. There's something that I think is beautiful about creating this beauty from your own body. Like, I don't know what it is. I think it's amazing. Even watching some of these kids that cannot dance or keep time for anything, but then thinking they're going to go home and these kids will all have, I don't know, a rough night, or someone called them fat, or someone, like something that's like, oh man, that's just part of this. But they're going to think that's bad, instead of like, that's just part of what they go through, the experience of what they go through. And that's okay. And even a good thing. And then I come home last night, my one daughter's in this weird headspace about math. She's in math way beyond anything I ever took. And she's a junior, but she's like, it's so hard to pay attention in class. I'm so tired. And just, I kind of made jokes with her. I was like, yeah, well, like, cause I felt like, and she's kind of worried about it. I was like, yeah, well, it's fine to be worried about it. Like, figure it out. Go pay attention in class. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there is no, like, it's okay. You look how far advanced you are or anything. It's just saying, hey, look, that's fine. You're gonna have to figure some stuff out if you want to get a better grade than you're getting. Yeah. But I just think it's, I think that I don't like that we breed this idea. That we don't know how to be emotionally resilient, even if this is where I may transition over. We can come back to this, what we were talking about, but a transition over to men. It's like, we don't believe that it's okay for us to feel sad or hurt or lonely and be vulnerable about it, because it makes us weak, and weak is the worst thing we could be. Yeah. And I think it's interesting when she's talking about this idea. One of the things that I think got cut off is when she talks about the idea that what happens for these kids is they learn that you as parents can't tolerate their anxiety or their pain. And so now they feel this pain, and now quickly associated with it is the idea of my parents' pain. And so I have to avoid this doubly because it's bad for me and it's bad for my parents. So we're just creating this massive culture where pain is the worst thing ever, even though we're also creating this weird culture where it's like our badge of honor. Anyway, I'm rambling now, so someone jump in and cut me off.
Well, go ahead, Matt, because you've been very quiet.
Shoot. Well, let's see. No, I was thinking she's talking about it in terms of feelings and happiness and things like that. And I guess using the same concepts, for me, it's more helpful to think of it like anytime there's a signal of distress, like how automatic is our rescue instinct as a parent. And like the example she used, it's like, there's a little signal of distress, right? I'm the only one who doesn't read in my class, or whatever she said. And then right away it's like, well, let me rescue you from that distressful place and bring you to a place where you're proud of yourself. And I think that, like, to me, that's maybe more the relational element of what she's describing. Like, she's describing the outcome on kids that don't have the ability to tolerate or feel different feelings that are necessary. But I think for me, like, when I think about not so much just my own personal feelings when my kids are in distress, but all the societal messages that, like, as a parent, you are supposed to. I think how many messages there are about you're a bad parent if your child's in danger and you do nothing. But kind of like we've talked about a long, long time ago, our concept of danger has become really dangerous, right? Because it's like, now we're saying like feelings are dangerous in a way, right? Like we're responding to them like they're dangerous. Like, oh crap, we gotta, if I don't tell you you're good at something, then you're probably going to, go down this road of like withdrawing, maybe you'll start getting poorer grades because you feel bad that you're the only kid that doesn't read. And I think it just sends the opposite message of what she was describing, where if I tell you that you aren't going to be able to handle this, then you won't, right? I think it was 2 episodes ago, we talked about the importance of starting with questions.
Mm-hmm.
So like in a moment where it's like, I'm the only one in my class who doesn't read, what questions would be really helpful there to, like, for both parent and child to sit there and ask, what is it that's going on? Right. So how do you feel about that? Does it bother you? What happens as a result of not being able to read? Do you end up feeling dumb when it's your turn to read in class or whatever? Like exploring what it is that kind of like is the actual thing that's bothering the kid. And then they can either choose to say, well, whatever, I don't need to be the best reader in the class. I don't care because I actually am more interested in this. Or they could say, that really bothers me that I can't read and I really want to learn to read. And then, you're in a place of support. But I think I'm not saying that's impossible, but I think there's just a monumental force of messages to parents that your job in that moment is to relieve distress. And if you don't, you're not empathetic, you're not caring, you're not, how many times have your kids said to you, well, you don't even care how I feel? It's like, that's exactly what we're talking about. Maybe what you're saying to me is it's hard for you to deal with those feelings, right? And vice versa, right? When we, as parents, just jump to a solution, our kids are right to say, you don't care how I feel, meaning like, maybe you think that I can't handle these feelings, or you don't want to even talk about them, or, and maybe sometimes the kids are like, I can do it. I'm trying to tell you about it. Right. And as parents, we're freaked out. So those were my thoughts. And from the looks on your faces, I think I probably went in and out.
Well, I'm catching all of it.
No, I had you the whole time.
He's going in and out of mine, but
Yeah.
go ahead, Mike.
Well, so like when I think her example of I'm the only kid in my class who can't read may not have been the strongest example. Mostly because I think as a parent, like if my kid comes to me and says that, there's 1,000 other things at play than just, right? Like, does my kid have some kind of learning disability that I need to be looking at? Like, there's so many different things that I thought, but I get what she's saying. The one thing I will say is her kind of example responses. The first one was, well, hey, like everyone learns at their own pace, buddy. And then it was, but you're really good at this. The first one I didn't actually have a huge problem with. I needed more. But I think, no, I don't think that's taking it away, because it's true. Everyone does learn at their own pace, and right, like develop those skills at their own pace. Like I was a slow reader for years, and then one day it just kind of clicked, and like English became so easy for me. And so I think, yeah, there's truth in that statement. The place where it gets, like, the problem with the other two statements to me is they're comparative. Well, but you're really good at soccer. That's comparative in nature, right? You're better than those other kids, so you should feel good about yourself. You're never going to find happiness through comparison. It's just because there's always going to be, theoretically, there's always going to be someone better than you. So you're never going to truly find happiness through comparisons anyway. You're just setting yourself up for greater failure at some point. Especially when your kid inevitably realizes, no, Mom, I'm not the best kid at soccer. So now you've got the problem of you took this experience of learning how to manage these anxieties and emotions on their own away, and they feel like you just lied to them. Right? You just said these things to make me feel better, Mom. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I think, like with that first one, right? Like Every kid learns at their own pace. And I think you touched on this, Matt, and even Rob, like it comes to this idea of, okay, so what are we going to do about this? Right? Like, what are you going to, like, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to get some tutoring? Do you want to, like, what do you want to do about it? Which is very different, I think, to me at least, from trying to soothe their pain through saying, well, but you're good at these other things, or, you know, it doesn't matter that much, which that one I thought, well, with reading, it kind of does. Like, that's a pretty important skill. But anyway, so it's learning to recognize those moments and recognize your own discomfort in them as a parent and the struggles. Like this has come up a couple of times with husbands in the last couple of weeks for me, where they, nope, lost it.
Well, here's a couple of thoughts I had, and you guys just stay with me if I check in and out. Matt can stay with me and fill you in, Mike. It makes me think about, I think a long time ago, I told you guys about a podcast. I can't remember. It was through NPR. I can't remember what one of their shows it was, about this idea that our culture, there's this pain in the field of pain, the kind of the dominating mentality is we will find the right balance of medications to get you out of pain. And there was, and we're finding these people, it's like they'll just bounce from doctor to doctor trying to find solutions to their pain, but never actually getting out of pain and becoming more and more dependent on these chemicals, these drugs. And so there is this one therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist who was working on pain, and specifically that he would not give, working with teenagers who had gone from doctor to doctor to doctor, who had this problem of pain and no one could figure out what it was. So what he did with these kids was, we're going to start working on how you tolerate pain, essentially. Like, I'm going to put you in pain. They'd be in pain and he'd make them go swim laps for long periods of time and like torture these kids. He said kids would get out and like basically go and puke, and, you know, pushing to these extreme ends. For the point being that he can reach, essentially, I want to build your tolerance to pain. And the outcome was that all these kids were saying, I still have pain, but I'm able, like, it feels less because I don't, like, I feel like I have control over it. I do these things now where it feels like, okay, when this comes up, I can do this or this. And it feels like their pain is less, but they felt like they still had pain, which puts them in a better spot than they ever had been trying to get on these different meds. And it makes me think of this is where it ties into something I've talked about with clients. Like, there's been a couple times where I'm saying, hey, look, you have these emotional things happening. You're not paying attention to them. Like, you don't even know sometimes what the emotion is because you've gotten so good at cutting out the negatives that you never even notice them. And instead, they're like, well, what do I do? And I would tell them, I'd roll my eyes and say, I need you to journal, because journaling matters, because your hand can't move as fast as your brain. So it slows you down. But I also need you to start feeling the things that you feel. Another client, this was actually a female, but I said, she's like, what do I do? I said, you have to learn to tolerate pain. Like, when it comes up, I don't want you to do anything about it. I want you to feel it. Like, it's not bad to feel pain. You have to believe that you are able to feel it and still do what you were going to do or move forward. And that's the second part of this thing when that guy starts talking, that we talk about. We call it differentiation of self, but this ability to emotionally regulate. Like, I can feel this feeling and it is not going to dictate or drive what my behaviors are next. But essentially what Dr. Becky is saying is, we will make sure that you don't feel these things because it feels unpleasant for all of us. And so we'll just get out. And then we don't have to feel it and we don't have to worry about it, except it will keep showing up. And so the answer is it's what we've said many times on this show. It's like, yeah, this thing is hard. Thank you for telling me. Now go do it. Yeah. Like, it's not like it's hard, so you should probably skip this one or maybe take a mental health day. It's saying, yeah, go do it. It's hot outside and you're going to sweat like a pig, but go do it.
Yeah.
I think that part, teaching our kids and ourselves, like teaching men, each other, like, that the tolerance of pain is not the same thing as avoiding pain. And too many men just try to pretend there's no pain there
Yeah.
which is different than saying, I know how to feel it and tolerate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're still behind the curve on, like even in this clip we watched, on the messaging about all of that, because like pain without a purpose is just suffering, right? For
Right.
like no reason. But pain with a purpose is really meaningful and, dare I say, purposeful.
Dare.
But the, like, even with the way she was saying it, and I'm sure if she was sitting in front of me and asked her this question, she would elaborate in the way that I'm about to, right? That she said, basically if we just focus on making our kids happy, then something bad will happen, basically, right? Like, then they will end up feeling anxiety or being anxious as an adult. And her point is, I think, the reason that we do all this is so that we can be resilient, because like resiliency is an inherent good, because life involves suffering and adversity and challenges, and the ability to feel like I don't have to necessarily eliminate those things. And I can overcome them. And there's a sense of like control and autonomy and empowerment when I do that. That's the purpose of the pain, right? It's not sit in this so that you get better at it, because that's it. Right?
Because now
It's
you're
like
better.
like you're actually like moving towards something than trying to avoid this thing just being like this feeling being something that pushes you around in your life, right? And I think the bigger thing is like the purpose is you will be able to move toward the things you value, the things you want in life, right? And I think we underdo that side of the message a lot. So the pain, it's like, if pain can be eliminated, why would we not do that, right?
Right.
And I think that's probably right half of the time. But let's take it to men for a second, right? I think like even there, guys that are like struggling and suffering and not asking for help or whatever, right? I think our automatic assumption is like, well, that person's suffering for no reason, and they could not deal with that if they would just blah blah blah, right? If they would reach out, right? And again, I think there's a lot of truth in that, but I think there are also some guys that would say, no, I actually am feeling this for a reason, right? Like I'm letting this suck. I'm letting this thing be difficult because not because I'm like, well, it's just my lot in life. It's what I got to do, like that's a little bit more like, I guess there's a purpose in that because it gets me positive attention, maybe, right? Like I'm somebody who can endure a lot, but if the purpose is I want to get more comfortable with this, not so that it doesn't become a big negative in my life, but because it is a part of me and I'm trying to integrate it into my lived experience, right? In a way where there's room for it. And I can actually see the value that it has in my life instead of just tolerating. Like way back, someone was talking about tolerance when that was kind of like the most elevated virtue we could have in terms of diversity was tolerance, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, that's total BS. Why do we keep saying tolerance, right? Like that is like, that's a virtue with limits, right? I can tolerate you until I can't. Whereas like he proposed, like love is boundless, right? Why are we not talking more about love? So I think in this regard, tolerating feelings, tolerating discomfort, I think falls a little bit short of the idea of, no, you're actually trying to make space for and integrate and love and appreciate that emotion, right? It has value in your life. What does it teach you? What is it? What messages does it send to you? And if you can't label it effectively, right, which is like first step for most people is like just being able to put a word to it. I'm not even going to be able to get familiar enough with it to answer that question of what value does it add to my life. I don't even know what I'm talking about. All I'm saying is just pain, right? Instead of, oh, I'm feeling really anxious and I'm feeling really underappreciated. I'm feeling whatever it is, right? Or rejected or whatever. Giving words to that, I think there's so much research that we've talked about before that your ability to like actually put a label on your emotional experience is super highly correlated with your ability to regulate emotionally which I think is more like just integrate your entire lived experience so that it becomes informative, but not like a directive or like a mandate. I feel this, therefore blank. It's just, I feel this and I can make room, like you're saying, with differentiation of self. Like I can make room for what are my thoughts about that too, right? And what are my values and what is the direction I'm trying to head in.
One thing, Matt, you said kind of really stood out to me, which is something that I think we've all kind of discussed and found in our work with men. We're not good at necessarily looking at the deeper underlying emotions, right? Like we've all, I'm sure, had the experience of asking a guy, hey, what did that feel? Oh, I was angry. Okay, go further. Nope. I was just angry. That's it. That's all I was angry. And I thought, and I even had one guy and I said, really? Because when that kind of thing happens to me, I'm embarrassed. And he goes, oh no, yeah, I'm that too. And I was like, that's the underlying, right? Like it exhibits as anger because that's what we're comfortable showing. We don't want to have to admit we're embarrassed. And so we mask it as anger. And so it does require at some point, like if you're really going to try to understand what you're going through and the discomfort, you do have to at some point say, this is probably something more than just anger, or this is probably something more than just hurt or sadness. Right. Let me, and that's where, as much fun as I make of them when I pull them out with my clients, that like those charts or wheels of words to kind of help people say, look, these are all interrelated to this. And the number of adults are like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't even think of that. And I'm like, right. Because we're not great at talking about it, which means they're not words that readily come. Mm-hmm. The other thing that to me is like, I thought it when I heard it, and then a couple of things. And again, I think we've all met this person who kind of takes what she's saying to the extreme. Where instead of like allowing their kid to experience the emotion, they'll sometimes create it or push them into it. Mm-hmm. And there's that part
like
of me that
create
thinks,
the emotion, like the big kind of
yeah, like create the situation where they know it's going to come.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I think like one time my kids were asking why there was something we didn't allow at home. And one of their siblings goes, it was about language and language, usage at home. And one of the older kids goes, well, Dad, they hear it all the time at school. And I was like, right, exactly. They don't need to hear it here. Mm-hmm. They're going to hear it all the time. Everywhere else they go. They don't need to hear it here. Mm-hmm. Right? That's very different than me creating the situation because, sorry, guys, if that makes you uncomfortable, you got to learn how to sit in that. So let me create that situation for you. No, the world's going to take care of it. Mm-hmm. 90% of the time, the world's going to take care of it. You don't have to create that situation for your kid. And the other thing that in all of the things that we're saying, we're not saying don't comfort your kid or don't comfort your wife or your friend. But understand that the example she gave, but you're a really good soccer player. Yeah, that's not helpful. I'm going to argue that's not really comfort, right? That's surface. It's the thing we've talked about so many times, which is you have to learn how to validate someone's emotions, which does not require trying to take them away. Right. And it goes back to some of the questions like, how do you feel about the fact that you're the only one in your class that can't read? Mm-hmm. Right. Let's talk about that emotion. And then I can kind of relate to it and validate it and whatever.
Yeah.
While still allowing you to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you laughing at my tone of voice, Rob?
No, I'm laughing at this idea of like it's from Big Daddy. It's not his fault he can't read. I was going to say, actually, maybe in my closing remarks, you guys can add any in, but it sounds like you guys both gave some closing shots there. I don't know, but I was just thinking of an exercise, maybe ironically based on what you guys are saying, because I'm going to tell you to do something to create something, to create your own pain. And maybe there's no purpose to it other than feeling pain, except there is purpose to it. You guys have probably heard of this. This is a mindfulness exercise. You may have done it before. The ice cube exercise, where you just put an ice cube in your hand. I've told clients to do this even just recently, with the purpose being, I want you to, become like, it's a way of physically practicing. Can I tolerate, we'll start with that for now, pain, but more specifically, can I just kind of experience something and take it as information and not label it as bad or anything, just saying, okay, this is something that's coming in. What do we do with this information? So and Spacemen, you can try this at home. It does not require medical supervision, but you take an ice cube and put it in your hand for about 3 minutes. And in the 3 minutes, there's questions you can ask yourself, or you can do this afterwards, or you can have somebody do this to you and just ask while you're letting the ice just sit in your hand and not moving it, not ending it for 3 minutes, asking questions like, how does it feel? This has here, like I actually have tweaked this before. Where do you feel it? Is it painful or just uncomfortable? Sometimes I'll tweak that and say, don't describe it as painful. Don't label it that way. Just say it feels like try to describe what the feeling is. So it feels like someone's pushing on something, or it feels like a pin, or it feels like, because then you're not labeling as good or bad. You're just saying, okay, this is what the information is. Do you feel tingling or numbness? What coping skills are you using to get through this? How would you rate the experience from 1 to 10? All these things. It's just information that allows us to kind of build maybe build that idea of resilience. Maybe that's better than tolerance, like a resilience of like, I know this will end. This will come to an end at some point. With the idea being, because I agree, there's no need. Sometimes like, I watch people, I understand why they're doing it. It's just, so everybody knows it's totally ineffective. When they decide they're going to go out running at like 4 p.m. because it's peak sun and peak heat. Dude. So they're going to sweat.
I love it.
And they think they're going to lose all their weight. And I'm like,
oh no, I don't think that.
No.
But
I've talked to a bunch of people where it's like, and then you lose all this weight. And I'm like, you do, it's all water weight.
And then you drink
it back and it all comes right back. But it feels too like, why are you doing that? Like now, or it's like, well, I have to go mow the lawn. And you get these martyrs where it's like, I have to mow the lawn, and they'll wait till like 2 p.m. It's like, don't do that to like make your spouse feel bad. Just go mow the lawn when it's not going to kill you. So that's pain for a whole different reason. But this is the idea that feeling the full breadth of emotion is a necessary part to becoming a much more mature, better human than you are now. And so this exercise, this ice cube exercise, is just something tangible you can do that to kind of say, okay, how quickly does my brain switch over to like, this is painful, I don't like this, I want to just forget it. I'm not doing this for 3 minutes. Instead of just saying, I don't, even to say, I don't like this. It's like, all right, to start, eventually it's like, okay, well, what does this feel like? Or that kind of process is a way I think it really matters to say, stop avoiding something you cannot avoid. Yeah. And actually that is healthy for you.
Yeah. At some point I want to venture into an episode where we break as much as we've said, like, let's break down descriptions, positive and negative, about feelings. I kind of want to venture into like breaking emotions into like 3 or 4 categories. Not so much like they're good or bad, but I think that to me, the point of emotional regulation is to be able to be the one who regulates your feelings, in the sense that, like, if I don't want to feel something, not because I'm afraid of it or I can't handle it, but because it's unproductive and getting in the way of what I'm trying to do, then I can regulate it, meaning like tune out its influence on my behavior. Right. And then other times I can really turn up the emotional influence of my behavior. And I think that in that regard, that's probably where we've gotten into like good and bad feelings. Like if I feel this, it causes me to do this, but that's just because you haven't, well, me included, right? Like haven't gotten into a place of being able to regulate that in a way where it doesn't have the influence you want it to have. It's just a part of the experience. So I don't know why this came to mind as I was thinking about that. It's like, he who can destroy the spice controls the spice. Like, I think there's actually some really good research on like intentional suppression of emotion, which I think a lot of guys are trying to do. but it might be like it's intentional suppression because I don't like, I can't tolerate it. Like I couldn't, if it came up and I had no other choice but to feel it, I'd be screwed. Right. Cause I would freak out and I wouldn't be able to handle it. I think in that regard, exposure is really helpful so that you can say right now, I mean, just to take a kind of a classic, easy one to put into that category of not wanting it to have undue influence on your behavior, like fear. Like, I think when we tell guys like, well, you know, feel your fear, they're like, well, why? Like, I don't want to act out of fear. I don't want fear to drive me. But at the same time, like the presence of fear is what gives you access to courage. The presence of adversity is what gives you access to resilience. There's all sorts of like, I think it's just more, maybe like another level of emotional processing where I think a lot more men would get on board with the idea of like, you want to be the one who dictates how much influence emotions play on whatever experience you're having based on values that you have. So right now, if I want to feel connected to my spouse, I really want to turn up empathy. I want to turn up, you know, some of the more what we would call vulnerable feelings so that she and I can feel like we're getting to know each other on a deeper level and feeling more connected. I want to be the one that can access that. Right. And then when I am having to apply for a job because, you know, I need to provide for a family and I'm anxious and freaked out, I don't want that to influence the way that I'm showing up. So I want to be able to like regulate that down in a way that what I put forward is what's going to serve the situation. Right. So, yeah, maybe a future episode on,
I think
breaking it up.
I think it's a good idea because there's a word, the word you're using. Maybe I have a hard time with the word suppress.
I think we've always said bad. That's bad. And I think
Well,
like if I'm saying to my feeling, I hear you and I know you're here, but you're not driving right now.
right. But that's what's different to me. Cause
Yeah.
you said, which I liked what you said.
That's the literature calls it active or intentional suppression.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. I just don't, I have
Yeah.
a hard time with it because I think suppression is not always great. That sounds like you
Right.
suppress a fire. You put, you know, it's like, I don't want to put it
Mhm.
out.
Right.
I think, but I do think it matters to say how much influence will I let it have?
Mhm.
Because that's different than saying I don't feel it. It's saying I do feel it, but I don't let it have influence,
Yeah.
or I let it have 30% influence. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, you know, to say like on the decision was 100% logical.
Yeah.
It's like probably not. There's probably 20, 30, 70% that was emotional in there.
Yeah.
Like, and that's okay. You can decide
Mhm.
if we can start to regulate. This is how much emotion I want to let in on this one.
Mhm.
That's what true differentiation of self is, or true emotional regulation is. I will regulate. It doesn't mean I don't express or feel it,
Yeah.
or that it drives my behavior. It means I regulate the temperature of the room.
Mm-hmm.
That part, so your wording, I think, is good to say how much influence do you want it to have,
Mm-hmm.
not to say get rid of it, which
Yeah.
is what too many men, I think, try to do. I'll avoid it and shove it down.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like I'll often say to those guys, like, look, you know, sometimes these emotions come at inconvenient times, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, so put it aside. Like, if you need to take it and put it aside, that's fine, but you have to give it its space at some point, right? Because otherwise, it is just like true, sincere suppression. Like it's not acknowledging it. It's not anything. No, you have to acknowledge it. And at some point it has to have its space, right? We have to sit with it at some point, but no, like, I think you're right. Allowing it or deciding how much influence we want to give it in a given moment or time. It's a necessary skill to learn
is
how
kind
to
of-
say, I don't have time for it.
It is kind of funny though, because we don't have time for this today, but I feel like, yeah, maybe lately I've been thinking, I don't know if I have to sit with, like, sometimes I think we have this idea. It's like, now you must go feel it. And it's like, do I, or can I just say, no, it's there. I know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's different.
Yeah.
Like, and to acknowledge it and label it,
Mm-hmm.
which is different than like, hey, I'll see you guys in half an hour. I have to go cry. You know,
Mhm.
like, if you want to, great, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it matters to say, man, it killed me. Like, it really freaking hurt.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and that's it. But that'll come in our breakdown whenever that episode happens. So until then, go get an ice cube, stick it in your hand for 3 minutes, and then brag to your wife that you could probably do it longer than she could, because that's what this is about. And then come back next time and catch us on the Manspace. He's going to be a soccer player. He is. He is.